everybody, how's it going? This is Big Lair here in Japan on Jack's Private Coffee Corner. Today I decided to come out to the ocean. It's pretty close to where I live actually. It's not really beautiful here, you know, as an ocean, and it's all concrete. They've made everything concrete, and that's because during World War II, I believe it was around 1944, there was a huge earthquake and tidal wave that came over Japan, especially this area where I am here. My father-in-law at the time, Japanese father-in-law, was 3 years old, and he said it just wiped out the whole town. And he lived like really close to where we live now. He said it just wiped everything out. And then the first tidal wave went out, and there were all these fish in the streets. And of course, during the war, people were pretty hard pressed to find food because the military was taking everything from everybody. So farmers and fishermen, even farmers and fishermen, had a really tough time, and his family was farmers. Anyway, so all this fish was out in the streets and people ran out. You can imagine, you know, some people probably hadn't eaten fish in months. They couldn't afford it or couldn't get their hands on it. And they ran out in the streets to gather up all these fish. Well, a second tidal wave came in. And just heard a funny noise. Anyway, second tidal wave came in and then swept all those people out. So it was a really a horrendous event. And I don't think it's widely known outside of Japan because, you know, it was World War II and we were fighting against the Japanese, and I would imagine it helped the Allied forces defeat Japan, part of that, right? So anyway, you can probably hear the water kind of breaking along these along the shoreline here. This is all concrete. They've built this up so that if another big tidal wave comes in, it'll hopefully get stopped or slowed down. I thought I would come out here today and risk getting more sunburn, suntan, because this weekend we're supposed to have a humongous typhoon roll through right through this area. Looks like we're going to probably be in the center of it, so I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to come out today and see how it looks here, and then come back maybe Sunday or Monday and see if it looks any different. It's pretty fun to come out after a big typhoon. Well, you call it a hurricane in the Atlantic Ocean, right? And a cyclone in the Indian Ocean. But it's fun to come out after a typhoon because all this stuff gets washed up on shore. I used to live years ago in a different part of Japan, same prefecture, just on the east side of it. I was on this Atsumi Peninsula. If you look on Google Maps, Atsumi Peninsula, A-T-S-U-M-I Peninsula, you'll find there's a real long stretch of coastline there. I was about 10 minutes from a pretty nice beach. They have surfing competitions in that area of Japan, so it's, you know, it's nice beaches. I think the water's gotten cleaned up the last few years. I don't know if all that radiation from Fukushima is making the water look better or not, but it looks a little cleaner than it did to me years ago. Anyway, one year when we were living over there, huge typhoon came through. Next day I took my kids to the ocean and we found just hundreds of these nurse sharks. You know, nurse sharks. Hundreds of these small nurse sharks just all over the coastline. They're all dead. We found humongous jellyfish, just these, you know, if you can imagine, like, for those of you in America who are, I'm 51, so if you're around my age, you probably saw garbage cans years ago. Everyone had these aluminum garbage cans, right, with a big lid on it. So you can imagine the size of that garbage can, right? So imagine the lid. The lid, that would be the same diameter as these jellyfish that we found. They were just huge. And there was a typhoon that rolled through here a couple weeks ago. In Japan, they just give a number to the typhoons, but all the other countries give a name to it. So that was number Number 15 came through a few weeks ago, and after that my son and I came down to the ocean here. We were just a little bit south of where I'm sitting now, and we found all of these stingrays that were dead. And my son knew that they're called, like in Japanese, it translates to like the red stingray. So we're goofing around, poking these things with sticks and taking photos with them. And then the next day, in the newspaper, my wife shows me an article that these red stingrays are highly poisonous. If you happen to get hit with that barb thing they have, they have like a thing they can stick you with. And the article was that, after this typhoon, people went down to the beach, messed with them, and kids got poked with that barb, and then the poison was still in there, and people were hospitalized. So my son and I were pretty lucky that we didn't do anything foolish like that and stick each other with those barbs, huh? Anyway, yeah, so that was typhoon number 15. We got number 19, which is going to roll over us this weekend. So that should be pretty interesting. Sitting here at the ocean reminds me of years ago when I lived in Oahu in Hawaii, Oahu Island. Of course, the ocean around Hawaii is about 5,000 times more beautiful than here in Japan. There are some places in Japan where the ocean's still clean and nice blue-green colors. Where I am, I'm in Aichi Prefecture. I'm actually sitting, I guess officially, I'm looking at the Mikawa Bay. The Mikawa Bay. And that's not very clean. I think if I can pan out here into the ocean a little bit, maybe you can see all these like stick things sticking up out there. Can you see a boat going by and some like sticks sticking up in the ocean? Those sticks are for seaweed. They grow seaweed there, and they're not sure why, but the seaweed production has gone down steadily over the last 5-6 years. I personally think it has to do with maybe Fukushima, and the radiation is just now finally saturated all of the water and air and around Japan. But the scientists keep saying no, the sea temperatures have been rising, and that's why the seaweed production is down. So we'll leave that up in the air. I could be wrong in my opinion, and the scientists could be right, but I tend not to agree with what the official line is on things, only because we're lied to so much. There's actually a TV show here in Japan, and I'm trying to think of how it would translate. It was basically, what we thought was true isn't true anymore, and they gave all these examples of advice that different scientists and medical professionals had told people over the last 20 years in Japan, things you should absolutely do, or for this reason, that's why this thing is like that. And I was pretty surprised. They came on the show and actually admitted all these things were wrong, and told what they think it is. And it was funny because a bunch of these things through the years I had told my wife, nah, that's bullshit, nah, that's bullshit. Of course, no one listened to Big Lair. And then we watched this show, and my wife's like, oh my God, all that stuff you said was right. So I kind of got some brownie points with the wife there. That was nice, huh? Okay, back to my story in Oahu. So I'm living in Oahu. I was going to the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I was doing an MBA program called the JEMBA program. It's a Japan-focused MBA. So anyway, I'm there back in '98. Now, I had grown up in Wisconsin right along the Mississippi River. My brother and I used to swim across the river. We've done it numerous times. Used to do it at night, which is quite dangerous because you got boats going by, and when you're swimming in the river, the water looks black, and you look black, and you could easily get run over by a boat. I do not recommend anyone swim across the Mississippi River at night. However, my brother and I did it numerous times, and at times you'd have to tread water, for maybe 10 minutes as a big barge went by, because you didn't want to get, close to the barge, so you'd stop where you were. And at other times you'd have to swim like hell, so some houseboat or some idiot in a speedboat didn't run you over, because you're trying to calculate, where their I don't want to say their flight path, but you know what I mean, the path that they're going to be taking. You're trying to figure out where that is. So a little dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it, but we did it. And I'm trying to establish that I was a good enough swimmer that I was able to swim across the Mississippi River numerous times as a early to late teenage person, okay? So swimming across the river with very strong current, takes a little bit of skill, a little bit of savvy, and probably some luck too, right? So we did that. So I'm not a novice swimmer is what I'm getting at. So I moved to Oahu, and I had been to a lot of beaches around Oahu, mostly the beaches on the east side of the island. I never really went swimming in the North Shore where all the surfers are. I never messed around with Waikiki Beach, which is kind of on the southern part, I'll call it. But a lot of the beaches on the east side is where I like to go. Waimanalo was a favorite area of mine. Sunset Beach, a lot of great places there. Kailua, the area around Kailua has some pretty fantastic beaches. So anyway, I'm at this place. So I go with some fellow students of mine from the university. And so I go to Hamauna Bay, right? Hamauna Bay, beautiful place. You can see all kinds of fish there. And so one of the guys is from Thailand, and he's a scuba diver. Now, I've never scuba dived, but he says, "Hey, Larry, let's do some snorkeling." Okay, I've done snorkeling in the river, but never in the ocean. And I said to him, well, I don't want to go too deep and this and that. What about, the tide could pull me out and all this stuff. And he said, no, you'll be fine, man, you'll be fine. So he and I would go out, and Hamauna Bay kind of, it's not too deep, and then boom, it drops down to about, I don't know, we'll say 5-6 meters deep for a ways, and then boom, it just like drops off the cliff. Just checking somebody out who drove past here. Anyway, so we're out where this kind of drops off, right on the edge where it drops off to about 5-6 meters deep. And for those of you who don't know the metric system, 1 meter is about, let's see, it'd be 3 feet 4 inches. 1 meter is 3 feet 4 inches, if I'm not mistaken. So you do the math. 5 to 6 meters. So we're right on the edge of that. And he's kind of pointing out this fish and that fish, cool. And then he's off to my left, and I'm right here, and the ocean's kind of, you get moved forward a little bit, back a little bit, forward a little bit, back a little bit. Nothing too big. And then all of a sudden, whoom! I'm just pulled back. I'm pulled out with the tide, and I'm down about, we'll say 4 meters now. I'm getting pulled out, and I can see this kind of shelf, this coral shelf that I was just looking at getting farther and farther and farther away. And I thought, what the hell? So I come to the surface and I see, wow, I'm really far from where I was. And as I'm thinking this, I'm getting pulled out farther and farther and farther and farther. And I didn't grow up around the ocean. I did not know that when the tide pulls you out, you swim off to one side, right? You get out of that tide current, where it's pulling you out. Everyone seems to know that in Hawaii, except guys like me from Wisconsin. So if you know anything about this Hamauna Bay, or if you look at it on Google Maps, you'll see that it has a tiny opening to the Pacific Ocean. I frickin' get pulled all the way out to that opening. Now, like I said, I'm from Wisconsin. I don't know anything about this shit, right? So I'm just wondering, like, when's it going to stop? And I'm getting closer to the opening. And I go underwater for some reason to see what things look like. I see like a big object move underneath me. And literally all the hair stands up on my body. I've never had that happen before. I've seen ghosts before, and I didn't have the hair stand up on my body. Literally, the hair stood up on my body, and it was a terrifying feeling. And I thought, holy shit, I think I'm going to be a drive-by or a drive-through meal for a shark or something. Holy shit. So I get back to the surface, and now I'm right at that opening, and I look to my left, and there's tourists. There's tourists standing at this opening on the one side. There's a place you can walk out actually from the beach. It's quite a long walk. And they're there, and they're all yelling at me. Like, I can see they look like panicked, and they're yelling at me. And I'm like looking around going, Jesus Christ, did they see a shark or something? And they're all motioning for me to like get to the shore. And the shore is like so far away, and where they are, there's tons of rocks, and there's no way I'm gonna make it without getting bashed into those rocks if I go close to them. So luckily, with this tide that pulled me out, like that current ends, and I'm able to start making progress. Now I'm wearing flippers, and I'm a pretty fast swimmer the way it was. I was just going to say, how fast I am, but that doesn't make any sense, does it? Okay, I swam in high school, went to state, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter when you're in the ocean, right, how fast you are. So I'm swimming like hell. And there's some people following me along this walkway. Like, that's how nervous these people are. As I'm swimming, they're walking along, still motioning for me, and I'm thinking, what are they trying to say? Like, I'm not going to stop and look around, to see if there's a shark circling me or what. And I'm just focused on swimming as fast as I can. I don't know how long it took me. I would say a good 10 minutes of all-out sprinting, like a front crawl sprinting, and I've got flippers on, and I'm going as fast as I can. So I get back to where I can now see this coral shelf, and okay, I slow down a little bit, and I get out of the water. And actually, one of the guys there was one guy a bunch of people who followed me, and then everyone kind of, once I got to a safe spot, I could see they all, kind of broke up. But one guy followed me and waited for me at the beach. And he said, "Oh my God, what were you doing out there? Are you okay?" And I said, "Man, I was just like snorkeling with a friend, right there, and the tide pulled me out." And he said, "You're supposed to swim around the tide." And I said, "Man, I'm from Wisconsin. Nobody told me that." And he said, "Man, I don't know, but it looked like something was circling around you under the water. It was huge. We could see it. We thought we were going to watch you get eaten by something." And I said to him, "Man, I went underwater." And he said, "Yeah, when you went underwater, we thought you got pulled underwater." And I said, "I saw something huge. I don't know what it was." The hair stood up, and the hair was still standing up on my whole body. And the guy was like, "Man, I'm so glad you're okay." He's like, "Jesus, just remember, you get pulled out in the tide, you swim off to one side." I'm like, "Dude, I will never forget that." So this whole thing happened. All the people I'm with are oblivious to this. The guy I'm with from Thailand, he's still out snorkeling. He doesn't know shit. He doesn't know anything that happened. So I sit down, you can imagine I'm like huffing and puffing as everyone's like, "Hey, what'd you go way out there for? That was kind of a long swim you did." And I didn't even say anything to those people. They were all, they were all from different countries, and I just thought, no one's going to understand this. Okay, now the next day I go to the gym. I used to live in the Kuli'o'o Valley. Kuli'o'o Valley is, I don't remember if it's part of Hawaii Kai, but it's right next to Hawaii Kai. It's just a little west of Hawaii Kai proper. So there's like the Hawaii Kai, I don't know, business center or shopping center or something. They've got a supermarket there, a juice bar, a nice gym, a movie theater. Costco is not too far from there. So if you've ever been to Oahu, to Hawaii Kai, there's only like one shopping center there. That's where I was. So I'm at the gym there, and there's this big Hawaiian dude, a local guy, a power lifter, and he and I would chat all the time because I used to do powerlifting at that time too. So I come in, I see him, I'm there. I'm one of the first people in the gym. Asked me, "How's it going?" He says, "Hey man, you got kind of sunburn." And I'm like, "Yeah, I was at Hamuna Bay yesterday." And I said, "Man, you're not going to believe what happened." He goes, "Well, what's that?" So I tell him my story, and he goes, dude, on the news this morning, they closed down Hamuna Bay last night. They found a huge, like, 16-foot tiger shark swimming around in the bay. They closed the whole thing down. They're waiting for this thing to leave. It hasn't left yet. I'm like, holy shit. And he goes, I bet you saw that tiger shark. I said, I don't know what it was, man, but it looked big. And everyone else standing there screaming at me said this thing looked huge. So I don't know. I'm 6 foot tall, so 16 foot long would be, Jesus, close to 3 times my height. And then you got the girth of the shark. So then then this guy went off on a long thing about how older, Hawaiians, years ago, and I say years ago, it's when Hawaii was still Hawaii. It was, independent. It wasn't a territory of America or the British. Back in those days, people surfed, and they had these massive surfboards, like 300-pound surfboards. What is that in kilograms? I don't know. I can't think of it right now. So 300-pound surfboards. And he said sometimes they would get eaten. People would be out paddling on their board and get, big shark would snap the board in half and take the person with them. And I'm like, oh, Christ, man, that would be a terrible way to go. And he said, no, that was a very honorable way to die. People thought if you were going to die back then, either die in war or die getting eaten by a shark. Those were 2 honorable ways to go. And I said, man, I don't know about that, but I'm not looking, I won't be giving any sharks a second chance to do that. Okay, that was crazy. So other than that encounter, after that day, I did go swimming at a number of beaches every weekend. I would go to different beaches. I would not go out that far. One of the things I love to do, which you could easily do, I can't remember if it was Sunset Beach or where it was, but there's a beach on the eastern coast of Oahu there where the waves break, The waves break really hard onto the beach. And if you get just to the right spot, when the wave comes in before it breaks, it like rises up. And it's real fun because if you get the spot just right, it'll pick you up and you'll raise up above the beach up to the parking lot level. So this beach here, you've got the beach, and then in back, like a hill kind of goes up, and then there's parking up on top here. So when you park, you look down at the beach. So this was really fun. I would go there and get to that sweet spot in the waves, and the waves would pick you up as high or higher than the car park, and then you'd be looking down at everybody on the beach. That was pretty fun. And if you did it just right, you just bob up and down like a cork. You wouldn't get thrown onto the beach with the waves. You just kind of you'd ride that crest. And that was always pretty fun, I thought. So Hawaii, that was an awesome place. Speaking of Hawaii, and I should mention this because my channel is called Jack's Private Coffee Corner, I had my first cup of delicious coffee in Oahu. Now, I'd been living there for a while, and I had a fantastic family that I lived with. I rented part of their house, and I don't want to say their names because I haven't asked their permission to say their names, but they were just a fantastic husband and wife, and they had kids, and let's see, yeah, they had a grandkid then too, and their daughter and their son. Man, they helped me out so much. Those people were like my second family in Hawaii. I would have never had all the fun I did and done a lot of the things I did if it had not been for them. They were just an awesome family. So I'd been there a while, and the daughter, who was married on her own and very successful in real estate, her and her husband, she said to me, hey, have you been here? Have you been there yet on the island? No, I haven't. Well, why not? You've been here long enough. I'm in graduate school, it's busy. She said, you got to take an island tour. So she helped me book an island tour, like an all-day thing. And I found out that if you're like a local, like in Hawaiian, I believe it's kama'aina. If you're a kama'aina, you get a kama'aina discount. So when you book a tour or go to a restaurant or anywhere you go, you say, hey, you got a kama'aina discount? and you can usually get a pretty good discount on things. So she got me this tour with a Kama and a discount. And the tour guide, I don't remember his name, however, he was the original cameraman for Hawaii Five-0. Remember the original Hawaii Five-0 with Jack Lord? This guy was the original cameraman for that whole first series. He was our bus driver. Very interesting guy. So I get on the bus. It's me, it's a woman from England, her husband from Scotland, and everyone else is from Japan, Japanese tourists. Now at that time, I didn't speak Japanese. So the bus driver says to me, the English woman and the Scottish guy, hey, you guys sit in front. And he said, I want someone to talk to while I'm driving, and the Japanese don't speak English. It's a one-day, it's an all-day tour. It's going to get boring if I can't talk to somebody. Okay, cool. Now that was funny because I could understand the woman from England, but I could not understand her husband from Scotland. She had to interpret for me, which was quite fun, and I think the husband got a little upset because I'd have to look at her. And but hey, the Scottish accent, some of these dudes have a really heavy, thick Scottish accent. That's the one accent that I have trouble with. Everything else doesn't matter. If you have an Indian accent, you speak English with a strong Chinese accent, I'm okay. Irish accent, no problem. All the ones in England, I'm okay with it, but Scottish, oof. So anyway, we got on this tour, and there's certain spots that have been decided. We're going to go to this place, that place, this place. We're going to eat lunch at this place, and blah, blah, blah. So talking to the driver, and he's asking me what my favorite coffee in Hawaii is. And I said, man, I don't drink coffee. What? You're kidding me. He says, man, you never had Kona coffee? Nope. And he says, will you ever go to Denny's? And I said, yeah, I go to Denny's every Saturday morning. And he said, you never drank the Kona coffee. It's free, I'm like, yeah, I know it's free. Well, free refills, right? You just pay for a cup. It was real cheap back then. He said, man, I never drink it, but the lady that always waits on me, because I go every Saturday to the same spot, the same waitress is there to talk to me. He said, she offers it every week to me. I never take it. And he goes, that's not right. So he gets on like his PA system and announces to the bus, which is really funny because only the three of us understand English. We're making an unscheduled stop at this coffee shop. It's like this old plantation building, and this guy gets coffee from somewhere in Hawaii, original Kona coffee, and then he roasts it himself, and then he makes these different blends. So we stop the bus. Everyone's confused, all the Japanese are, because it's not on it's not a scheduled stop. So we get off the bus. He walks with me in the door, says hi to the guy who owns the place, and I forget the guy's name, but he says something like, Joe, he says, I got a guy here who's been living on Oahu for 6 months and he's never had Kona coffee. You gonna help me fix that? So this guy grabs this, he says, oh man, I just roasted this Kona hazelnut coffee. So he gives me this cup and I drink it. Man, that was amazing. That was just simply amazing. So of course I leave the place with a bunch of coffee, and the guy gave me a lot of stuff for free. Actually, he gave me all these different blends that he had, and I think I bought 2 bags of coffee, and I think I walked out of there with like 5 or 6. Just really awesome. So then the next next Saturday I go to Denny's, and I'm talking to the same local gal who's my waitress, and she's holding that pot of Kona coffee, and she says to me, well, I know you don't need this. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. And I said, I gotta tell you, I took this tour the other day and went to the so-and-so place, and oh, they have great coffee, don't they? She goes, wait, you don't drink coffee? I said, well, the tour guide, he made an unscheduled stop just so that I would try the coffee. And she says, I'm guessing you want the coffee today. Then I said, yeah, that's awesome. And they also had coconut syrup. Instead of maple syrup, coconut syrup. Man, that kind of stuff really makes living in a place, worthwhile. The people you meet, the things you do, the things you learn, the new things you find. So I've been a coffee drinker ever since then. The only problem is most coffee does not taste like 100% Kona coffee, right? So yeah, I've been a coffee drinker ever since. And I have to thank that tour guide operator and his friend who had the coffee shop, the guy who, well, he had the coffee roaster, and I've got to give all the credit to them. So anyway, this is a little different edition of Jack's Private Coffee Corner. One of the things I wanted to do with this channel when I first started was just to sit and talk about life, tell some interesting stories, interview some people. I've got some interviews lined up, but the people I want to interview who I think are really interesting, they're shy about it. I'm going to have to work on them a little bit to have them do an interview with me. Anyway, what's today? I think today is the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. What's the crypto market doing? I'm not sure. I'm not really thinking about cryptos for a few days here. You know, I made a video a few days ago talking about some of the trades I did, very successful trades. And yeah, we'll just see where things go from there. Normally today's Thursday for me. It would be my Thursday crypto update, but not much is going on, you know. A little bit of news about Binance. You know, Binance is doing some interesting things. I think if you have Alipay, you know, the Alibaba Pay platform, or if you have WeChat, you know, WeChat's like WhatsApp or something, you can use WeChat or Alipay to buy cryptos now. You can, you know, use fiat currency through those two apps to buy cryptocurrencies on Binance. So Binance is doing a lot of good things. I like Binance. Okay, that's all I have for today. As you can see, it's still sunny here. In a couple days, there may be a huge typhoon that rolls through and smashes everything, but hopefully it won't. If it does, I will make a video and show everybody. Okay, you guys take care. Have an awesome day. If you got some time, spend it with the people you love and have a cup of coffee or green tea or hibiscus tea, whatever you prefer. Just spend a little time with the people you love and tell them what you think about them and just enjoy life. Okay, take care.